person like that really gets the correct colors then?
Most people who are very colorblind learn to use cues of brightness and contrast, and what's the other one? They use the other cues to learn what it is. So in other words, imagine if when you were little, you never saw the color green, but people would point to something and say, this is green. So whatever you saw, you started saying, that's green. Doesn't matter that you aren't seeing the true green, you're seeing maybe a grayish color. But it doesn't matter because you learn to call that particular thing green. The only problem is that certain shades of gray for you will call green because from your point of view, those are the same. And that's the kind of thing that happens with people that get into color blindness. So their colors are shifted, but they become excellent at seeing shades and densities of color, and they can pretty much tell you what the colors are, even though they aren't really seeing them. In fact, that's how those colorblind charts are done with the little dots that you see. They're actually printed in such a way they're the same brightness. And so someone with blindness of a certain color can't see that one is different than the other because they look the same to them.
Jim, once upon a time when I was in printing, when I had things done, the recommendation was just to get as the most pleasing color you can. Now, it's probably more important if you're doing product development and so on, but there are certain colors you can put next to each other that can change the look of that color that is next to it as well, because your optics, the way you see things, goes back to something called Gestalt theory. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole nother philosophy of being able to see and interpret, because really you cannot see all the colors that are around you. So
I'll just mention that there, if you remember about 2 years ago, there was something out, a picture where you were supposed to tell them whether it was gold and white, was it, or black and something else. Yeah. And if you remember that, everybody would look at it and you would see it one way or the other. It's the exact same image. And some people would swear it was one color and some people would swear it's another color. That would be kind of a fun one to pull up. I mean, I can maybe look for that a little later if we get a chance, but that's exactly, I think, what you're talking about, where some of those colors can look different to people.
Yeah, I think that was
my cataracts last December. And after I had them out, it was amazing because how brilliant the colors became. And I was talking to the surgeon and he said, if you look at the old masters prints over time, he said when they're younger, they tend to be more muted colors. But as they got older, they were developing cataracts. So the colors got more bizarre. And it really is. It's an effect.
Very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. No, yeah, I've taken a number of tests for it because I always wondered if I was partially colorblind because everybody says my colors are so bright, but it's all my tests show that I come out 95%. So
well, it's probably you and Vincent Van Gogh, Jeff, you know, the two of you probably have the same visual acuity.
So well, we got started on this, but let me just say welcome everybody to the digital forum. It looks like we got 34 people today. That's great. Anybody that would like to join the panel, just please raise your Zoom hand and I can bring you on in. We got started a little bit before this started on color theory, I guess. Jim, if you want, why don't you dump that link to the website in the chat? People want to play with that.
Okay, what I'll have to do, I'm going to, I have to go away for a second. I'll put it on another computer. I got to send it by mail to this computer. Then I can have the link and then I can put it in the chat. So that'll
Yeah.
take just a second, but I can put that
Okay.
up for you.
No
Sure.
problem. No problem. So anybody have, anybody in the group, some reason chat keeps getting disabled. I think I have it now working. It looks like I am because I see a couple people. Welcome Ken Cena, who's in Arizona where it's 104 today. I'm glad I'm not in Arizona.
What is a dry heat?
Yeah, I don't care. Dry heat, warm heat, it's still hot at 104. I heard London yesterday was like 90 degrees and they don't normally see anything near that hot. So I'm glad I'm not in, we seem to be warming up quite a bit. So does anybody have any questions or things they'd like to talk about?
I've got one or two things to talk about, but first I was going to make a comment on the color theory that I read not too long ago, that when they first brought Superman to television, television was black and white at that time. Well, they made Superman's costume with colors, but when they first broadcast it, the first one or two shows, because of the color that they picked for his shorts, the gray that it turned out was exactly the same as his tights. So it looked like he was wearing any shorts.
Yeah.
Or Superman.
Yeah,
So they changed that.
some of that is sort of amazing how it works.
Something I was going to ask about, I'm looking at, for the Menominee Falls Camera Club, doing a slideshow of entries for the President's Challenge, and I was going to put some music on it. I know that there is a website where you can get royalty-free music, and I've forgotten where that is.
The easiest one to use is if you sign up for a YouTube account, they have a ton of free music right on YouTube that you can download. And I find that's the easiest because that will get past any of the YouTube problems that we would run into playing the stuff on YouTube. And it's all, most of it I think is marked as royalty free. Some of them you do have to credit them with the name of the artist that created it, but they've got rules in there. So if you've got a Gmail account, then you can sign up for YouTube. It's free, and then you can get into the music part of it.
And I don't know if you've ever done it for Lightroom slideshow section. Have you ever done a presentation on that?
Yeah, I don't know if I've done a presentation. It's not real hard.
Yeah, I know.
Let me see here if I can set something up real quick.
I just thought it might be a different subject.
Sure. Let me pick something that would be at least a little interesting. Let's see.
You may have some tips too on exporting them.
Sure. Oh, that's too many images. I usually got a couple slideshows floating around.
I don't mean to derail any questions or anything that anybody else wants.
No, we don't have really many questions, so this would be a good one. Yeah, this one would work. Yeah. Okay. That in slideshow. And it's top 3. Oh. And that. Okay. So here's the slideshow module. What you want to do is make sure you put the images into a collection so that you can find them easy. And once you have them in a collection, you can reorganize it. You can do a custom sort, or you can have it sorted by, I think right now mine are sorted by date. You can create a template. I've got a bunch of templates here set up. One for Menominee Falls is just a black background. My normal one is a lot of times this one, which has my name, info, and then I use the title section of the metadata to be able to throw a title up.
Mhm.
Now to get to the music part is right down here where it says music. You click the plus sign, and then you have to navigate to wherever you have the music. And I got to remember how it's here. And then let's see. I don't know why the folder that I normally want. I have it in too many spots and I've just rearranged everything. I don't know why my music archive isn't showing up. Okay, so let's start here. Sometimes you just have to start from the very beginning of your hard drive. And music. So once you I have a separate folder for all this stuff, and for some reason keep rearranging it. Should have been in the top tier spot. Okay. Hey, what happens when you're not quite prepared? Okay, I moved it to a drive. It should be under here. Yeah, crying out loud here. Yeah, I lost my music. I know I got it here somewhere, but that's weird. They keep switching how the Mac operating system works, and
Mhm.
I keep moving it around. I'm not sure it's supposed to be in my music folder.
That's one thing that kind of
Music.
drives me nuts is when they do a system update. It's like
Yeah.
they rearrange everything. It's like just leave music where music is supposed to be and not change it every time.
Yep. And that's sort of what they did to me here.
And the sad thing is you can't go back to the, how it was.
I can't figure out where they, and I keep it in 3 spots so I don't lose it. And of course I lost it.
Could you just do a search of an MP3?
Yeah. Now let's do this. I could type, it would help. Well, that's weird. Okay, but I've got one here, but what you'd end up doing is you go to wherever your music is. I've got a standard one that I created in GarageBand, so this one doesn't cause me any problems.
Mhm.
And it's 5 minutes and 46 seconds. Then the next section for playback is you can either sync the slides to the music, which syncs it to the beat, or you can adjust your slide length and the fading here. And if
Okay.
you want, you can get it to fit to the music. Now, I have 97 slides here. So at the 5-second setting and the 2-second crossfade, that would make the show 11 minutes and 33 seconds. So I would either have to play the music twice or, come up with another piece of music. You can hit fit to the music, but you can see that it drops the slide length to 1.5
1.5.
seconds.
Yeah.
Now, if you drop your crossfade down and then hit it again, it brings it up, and that's not too bad. And then you can preview it. And of course, because I can't find my music.
When you do preview and you do play, to me, it looks like it takes about the same time for the preparation. I don't know what the difference is.
Right. Yeah. It takes a while for it to prepare. It's got to look at each slide, and it downsizes it to go for whatever screen size you're working with. So this might take it a little while. It's doing that. I'm just gonna, I'll do a quick search here. My music should be in iCloud. That's the weird part.
Can you add more than just one song? You can add multiple.
Yeah, you can add as many songs as you'd like. Here it is. I wonder why it didn't show up when I was searching for the music, huh? Yeah, at least now I know. I found my music was right where I thought it was. It just was hidden for some reason. But so this might take a while because it does have a lot of older slides that it's got to go through, and it's only up to 10. So I'm just going to cancel out. Let me see if I can get to where my music was again. It's iCloud Drive. Yeah, it just should be an iCloud Drive. Yeah, right there. I wonder why it didn't show up the first time. So I've got a bunch of music. Some of this I paid for. Some of this I just got. Here's the YouTube approved music, which lets you got quite a few. It's a lot of older stuff. Some of it's not too bad. I look for stuff you can sort for it for the amount of time that it takes. Usually I just go by the file size. The bigger the file size, I look for stuff that's 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. If you like to get something real long, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. There's a lot of the old things, but there's some interesting stuff. And of course, you can listen to it and see if you like it. And that's what I did, is I just go through and I picked out, I don't know, I must have about 20 images or 20 songs here. How about, say, if we choose this one and see, now it shows up. This one I think is missing, so you can get rid of it if you want. And then let's see, so that's 6 minutes. And if I show music, a lot of these, what will happen with some of these is that it will kick back on the YouTube channel that if you monetize it, you won't get any money for it. That's generally what's happening these days. They're not so much giving a copyright strike. So it's not quite as bad as it used to be. But I've bought a lot of songs. Let's see, that's pretty short.
Any songs that you purchase, you can actually post on YouTube?
No, these are songs that were designed that you can use for slideshows. And that the one that place I use the most is Triple Scoop. And then Ken, there was that one that we were using the last couple times, wasn't it?
Well, the one that I was using doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
So if you use a slideshow, for your pictures on YouTube, you cannot use a purchased song?
Not a regular CD. It has to be one that you can license to play on YouTube.
Okay.
So that's why you tend to use the YouTube ones the most, because they're licensed. Most of these I have licenses to use them, but some of them, like Triple Scoop, one song costs me $60. So I don't know why I can't find some of the stuff that I like. But yeah, this is Triple Scoop. And they have really nice songs, but you're paying $60 a piece for it. I don't know why.
With my Zenfolio account for a while, they had some music selections that were free for me to use on
right.
their website. And now they've discontinued that and took away the ones that I had used.
Oh, okay.
I will mention that years ago, I had joined a group called Digital Juice. Digital Juice used to be actually more for videographers that were doing special effects, and you used to see them on NBC and Comedy Channel, stuff like that. But it was really cheap to join at one time. And then they also added music and graphics. So you could use the graphics for anything. And once you buy the license for this Digital Juice, you can use anything on their site for anything you produce. So it's music, it's graphics, it's whatever. And it used to be somewhere around, I want to say $300 for just about everything. I think now it's probably up a little bit, maybe like 400 or 500. But if you do graphic work or you think you're going to be doing some fancy videos, this does a lot of stuff for you. It does beginnings of shows and all kinds of special like fly-in video kinds of effects and lots of transitions. All of that stuff is all free if that's something you're ever going into.
Oh, I think I remember that. Yes, because we'd get flyers for Digital Juice.
Right. And I do still have that subscription because originally what they did was a lifetime license. So once you bought in, and I did that maybe 7, 8 years ago, you had it for life. And so now I can get just about everything. What they've done, though, to try to get you to do more is they let you get everything but the latest, let's say maybe 4K video. And I'm sure in the future it'll be 8K video. Then you'd have to upgrade your license. But I can get all the way through HD stuff. And to be honest, that would be more than enough for just about everything being produced today.
Yeah, there's a lot of different places. I can't think of the name of the other one. They were a little less expensive. So I might be able to find it here, Rob, while I get this thing to load. That's the trouble. Once this loads once, you can then save that slideshow and then it goes a lot quicker so that you don't have it. And then you can also export it out. So that makes it, pretty easy. Let's see. I know this is the company.
I met a guy that worked for a company in Green Bay, and he worked on graphics. And for him, his job was doing the graphics for a news for one of the TV stations in Green Bay. So all of the stuff related to the weather reports and things like that. He made up all their specialized flyers.
Oh, okay.
Things that were shown on TV.
And like Digital Juice could do all of that. So when you see any of the beginnings of the news, or you see any of the other things, again, if that's what you're doing. At one time I thought I was going to do much more video work, and I used to teach video stuff. So that made sense, but it's an expensive thing if you're not doing that. But even in my case, I've pulled a lot of music off of there because they do have a fair amount of music, and that's been very helpful. So, but it is an expensive site the first time you buy in.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the other site that I've used, and I don't know if they're still here, is Music2 with the number 2 Hughes. They just offer music. Is that the one, Ken?
Yeah, that's the one that I bought music from, but when you go to their site now, there's nothing, you can't buy anything.
Okay.
I think the website is still there, but you can't really purchase anything anymore.
They were a nice site. I'd have to look again too. I had a number of sites, but if you just type in royalty-free music, or music for videos and that, then you can use that, buy that stuff, and sometimes it wasn't that expensive. I mean, I keep seeing these companies disappear. The first company I used was called stock20.com. And I still have some of their music, and it was pretty decent. It's written by just a couple of guys, and they just ended up giving up on it, and it closed down. Music to Hughes was sort of the same thing. Triple Scoop is one that pretty much is designed just for music for slideshows. And yeah, Digital Juice. There's a couple others, but unless you're doing a lot of them and posting a lot of them to YouTube, it really doesn't pay, because you're getting charged $300 a year to use it. Now, I wrote my own, and if you do write your own songs, you can use that on YouTube. I use GarageBand to create a song, and that was the first one that was on here. It's the one that I normally keep on slideshows, because I know that one is one that I just took their little sections and grouped it together and made my own song, and it worked out pretty well. It's about 5 or 6 minutes long, and it's pretty repetitive, so you could just keep running it constantly, and I won't get any YouTube strikes with that. So, and that's the thing, you don't want to get a YouTube strike on your account. You get 3 of those strikes, and then you get banned from YouTube for 6 months. And so that's a problem. Now, what happens most of the time is that you just get a demonetized mark on your site, which for me and for all the groups that I work with, we're not monetizing our YouTube sites. We're just using it to play out and store our videos. So it's not as much of a problem, but you can't just take a CD that you have and play it. That's definitely going to get you a strike. Most of these others, sometimes you get somebody else may have copywritten a slideshow that they have, and then that music all of a sudden causes a problem. And then you got to decide whether you want to fight the cause or not. Boy, this is taking a lot longer, but it's up to slide number 98. There's only 98 slides. So,
You know, Jeff, the biggest problem with all the free stuff like the YouTube is trying to find something that you like. You can spend hours just going through listening to music.
I've noticed
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it might not actually fit with the type of photography that you do with the slideshow.
Right. So what I ended up doing is I spent a day going through and picked out ones that I liked, and I generally pick out ones that are long because I can always shorten them. And I just created a whole collection of music so that I didn't have to go through. Yeah, YouTube has something like 2,000 songs. Yeah. Right. And I got something from Brian that says you can use copyrighted music on YouTube as long as you understand the rules. If a particular song is registered with Content ID, you will get a claim. It doesn't matter if the song is labeled royalty free, no copyright, and came from a music library. So yeah, you got to watch which music libraries you end up using. Some of them work, some of them don't. And the big thing is getting a copyright claim on it. So Digital Juice, I believe, is one that has worked out with YouTube on some of their stuff. There's a couple other sites that I know about that will. So it's not a big deal. But yeah, like my triple scoop, I know that stuff I can generally get away with. The worst I'm going to get is a demonetized claim. Man, and I don't know, this thing seems to be stuck, so I don't know if it's even worth trying to play.
Yeah, Jeff, I noticed on some of your files, you got that exclamation point where the files are missing.
No, it's just that the metadata needs to be updated.
Okay.
Because all the files are still there, but yeah. Yeah. Could just be that my Lightroom froze up from trying to do all that and run Zoom at the same time. Because I'm noticing I'm not putting out a really very good quality image on the screen share.
Yeah, I notice that it isn't uncommon for it to freeze up on preparing slideshows for me.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times it takes a lot of memory, and yeah. So I generally get it to put out, I'll set it to do a video, and then I can play the video back, and that always works better than trying to do it right from Lightroom. Now, my Lightroom also has been running for quite a long time, and it always helps if you restart Lightroom before you do a slideshow. And I picked a collection that I haven't used in quite a while, so that was probably part of it too. So there are, the slideshow part is nice. If they're smaller files, it helps. For me, some of the files, I just picked one that was a little
Does it help
too,
if they're on JPEGs instead of RAW files?
yeah. A lot of these were raw files, so it doesn't help. I should see if I've got, I got a whole section where I just have slideshows, but yeah, but that's basically how it would work. And there's a section where it says export to video, and you just export it out as a full 1080p video, and then you can play it back. That works the simplest.
That's
if you're
MP4
doing-
file?
Yeah, it's an MP4 file.
Okay,
And that way you can play it back with music. And that gives you a lot less headache for playing back.
mhm.
You just need a player to play it back with.
Can I make a suggestion? And I have noticed that many times people that use these videos and then place them on Zoom, anything that's dissolving between one photo and another many times doesn't dissolve smoothly. You'll get choppiness, or sometimes they won't dissolve. You'll just see little bits of each of the pictures as they dissolve. So you might want to check on that. I have a feeling that depends on the speed of your computer and the uploads and all that stuff, but sometimes they don't work real well with the dissolves or special effects.
Okay,
Yeah, especially any special effects. If you do a straight dissolve, it's not so bad. But if you do a lot of moving, it's not playing the video back at full speed. It's only playing the video back at 10 or 15 frames a second. So it's about half the speed of normal. I am trying to get, and I've got a bug Zoom on it, because we do videos, I can up our quality rate a little bit more, and I'm trying to get that done, but it takes a lot of convincing with Zoom to do it for a little guy like me where I only have one license. They're a little more happier to do it when you got 5 or 10 licenses, and then they'll say, yeah, we can do that. But then you also need the internet speed as well to make sure that you have enough bandwidth to play the video smoothly too. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on when you have to do this stuff that gets a little tricky. And I constantly, I just, I don't know what my upload speed is today. The hard part is on Saturdays and certain days of the week, especially during news time, your internet can get really slow, and that can get to be a problem. So like I think this morning, well, everything seems to look sharp, but when I was screen sharing, for some reason, the screen share was coming out pretty low quality. Let me try this again, just to see. Yeah, for some reason, that's not as sharp as it should be. Let's see, where's my Zoom?
Well, Jeff, since you only have 4 pictures in that one, that should go work for you.
Yeah, that might work quick. Let me just check I want to check something while we're here.
That's something I don't know about Zoom. I know that my image, when I look at the Zoom screen, is extremely sharp, but I don't know what it looks like from the other end, whether it's as nearly as sharp or not.
Yeah, for me today, my screen sharing speed is 7 frames a second right now, and it's running at 1280 by 720 instead of 1080p. Everything else seems to be overall, we're not doing too bad. Part of it, I think, is my computer. Well, my send rate for me is running a little low, so I think that's probably my
Usually
problem
Zoom
today
sets up-
is
Does
I'm
lose.
caught in an area that doesn't have, sometimes my internet speeds aren't real great. But yeah, this would probably work as a slideshow because they're 4 images.
My experience with Zoom showing whether it shows good resolution. I've set up a Zoom on my laptop and had it on live on my computer when I'm showing something. It's pretty good about keeping the resolution, but it does lose some resolution. When I've compared what I'm looking at on Zoom to what I'm looking at on my live screen.
Yeah,
It's a little bit degradation of resolution, but generally it's pretty good.
generally it's a lot better than what I normally am getting today, but I think today it's because, oh, come on, oh, that's right. Can't find my plain background music. So here I just put, this isn't going to be the greatest music, but this should go fairly quick now. I mean, it's 4 lousy images. So you could see how, I mean, that transition was fairly quick. So it didn't look too bad on the computer, but
Now, is that one of the special effect transitions that might have problems on YouTube?
no, it should play fairly decent. That transition was fairly quick. It was only 0.7 seconds, so you don't see much. It pretty much just changed.
Mhm.
Now, if you change the transition to say 2 seconds and maybe this to 4, and we hit play again. Hey, come on. All you got to do is change the transition times.
That looked pretty smooth.
Yeah. So it's not, let's see, it shouldn't take that long. It started at the end, but oh, and I think I've got the pan and zoom in, which that's part of what can cause more of a problem.
I think it also might depend on your upload speed from wherever you are. Like, I think Jeff is usually pretty fast. But if you were somewhere where your upload speed wasn't real quick and you're trying to do like that dissolve, we just saw a little jump there. It wasn't bad at all. It was actually quite good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes I've seen at club meetings where whoever's showing the stuff from their home, it is jumpier, but it might just be coming from their upload speeds.
Yeah, and what I use is a company called Speed Test to check my speeds. It'd be interesting to see what we get here. My download speeds aren't too bad. Yeah, I'm at 380, 390. Gonna hit 400. What do you know? It's what I'm paying for. But it's the upload speed that can be, you want to be at around 20 megabits. And if you're not, that's when you can have more problems, especially with Zoom. Now, I'm splitting this up on 2 computers well, the one computer is just receiving. So the download speed generally is fast enough. You got to watch this upload speed. This is a free app that you can get, Speed Test, and it's one that I use. I'm surprised I'm getting 20 up today because it looked like for some reason.
I think with
I'm not getting-
Spectrum, I only get about 10 up.
Yeah. Yeah. What you can end up doing, you can pay an extra $10 or $20 a month and go to the next level up, and that would get you the speeds. But you know, if you don't do a lot of this stuff, 10 will work, but it's right on the edge of what works for Zoom. The other thing is with Zoom is to be hardwired into your router and not use Wi-Fi. Otherwise, what you get is packet loss and you get jumping of stuff. So hopefully that was a long way to answer the audio question. So that should help you for our club stuff.
Do you want me to show you that little thing that I have for you today?
Sure.
I'll try
Roger, you have everything answered?
More than enough, thanks.
Yeah, okay.
I'll try and make this work through a screen share, and we'll see if we can do this. Let's see if this works. All right, there it is. I saw this the other day and I was kind of blown away by this. And I hope you can see a Green Bay Packers stadium. And this was taken at the last game that was one of the practice games. And if you see down at the bottom, it says tag yourself, because they would love for you to put in your name where you are sitting. And you might say, well, hey, how would I do that? I can barely see me. Well, that's not exactly true. Let's see if I can do something interesting here. I'm trying to, I don't have a mouse for this. So that's what I was afraid of. It doesn't want to let me do this. It's really being very cranky today.
We seem to all be having computer problems today, because my screen share was not sharp today, and I don't know why.
I may have to switch to my other computer. Maybe now let me do it. You can get to this level of Zoom throughout the stadium, and you can find yourself. And
holy cow!
What blew me away about this is that when you, I think I can move it, you can go all over the entire stadium and see everybody that was there. And I mentioned this to Clint the other day, and he sent me something about a camera that shoots at 80,000 megapixels. And this probably is close to that kind of resolution, where, I mean, you can see everybody in all the stands everywhere. You can see the announcers, all of the different seats and so on. And again, this is being so cranky for me today. Okay, so we'll come back, and you might say, well, all those little G's, those are people that have already identified themselves. And you say, well, what if I sat on the other side of the stadium? You click opposite side, and it will then reverse this. If I can get it to work here today. So see, everything is running really slow. I don't know why it's doing that.
All that's
There it's going. So these are all the people who've done it from the other side. So you can go back and forth between the two sides and see what everybody's done. And you can zoom in literally on every seat in the house. There's nobody who's safe from this camera, which I just think is just, for me, this is absolutely amazing. And again, I'll see if I can.
But
I mean, you
keep
can go
going-
into everybody that's here.
What goes through my head is Big Brother. Who needs Big Brother when you're doing it to yourself?
Well, that's what I was thinking. But I mean, when you buy your tickets, you know
You're-
that one of the things you've agreed to is that any pictures of you taken while you're there are fair game.
It's a
Um,
public space, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not even public. It's because it is private. They can say
Oh.
this ticket comes with the ability for them to take pictures, and they need that because they have cameras everywhere. And you might just happen to be on TV, and they can't have you saying, "Well, I didn't want to be on TV." But this is really something to see. And again, play with
Wow.
this is kind of neat. But this has got to be at least, I would imagine, I don't know, 15,000 megapixels, maybe this 80,000, that the one that Clint sent me from New York. This is absolutely stunning. And if this kind of technology exists, imagine what they can do with this now everywhere. It's really something to see.
I sent the link in the chat for this Lambeau Field where you can zoom into the people. And also there are some, I have it saved. They have some pictures where it's 800, over 800 gig picture where you could just zoom in into mountains and that. It's just crazy.
Now there are, when I look at that picture, every now and then you will notice a face. Like if somebody turned really fast, you'll see a blur. Like maybe their face is forward and sideways at the same time, kind of blurred. It doesn't happen on many faces. So I don't know if this was some kind of a dissolve between a couple of different shots or just a single one very fast that did maybe a couple of them. I don't know, but it's absolutely amazing. Again, as you saw, you're zooming in literally on 3 or 4 people at a time on a screen. That is really pretty impressive.
I think that photo took 5 to 7 minutes just to take that picture.
Well, it couldn't have taken that long because people would have been blurred to craziness, you know, but
No, correct
these
in
people
that.
are sharp. You're seeing their faces as if you're looking at one of us right here. I mean,
But
that's
to do,
remarkable.
but to do the whole time of all the people, it took between 5 and 7 minutes. What I sent you on
There
that.
is, I do have a machine that would do that. Surprisingly, I got this Gigapan head that you put your camera in, and it will actually shoot fairly quickly all the pictures, you know, say on one side of the stadium, and it just takes multiple high quality pictures that then get stitched together, and then you would flip it, you know, probably have one on the other side that would shoot the other side. And yeah, they could do that whole side of the stadium with one high resolution camera, probably, and with 10 images that could be merged together, and it probably would keep it fairly sharp. That could be how they did it. Maybe they used, well, it has to be probably maybe one of Canon's high end ones that you get really good detail.
They
I
had
know
one.
Fuji's
It's
got
a
100 megapixel out there. So that's, I mean,
Yeah.
it just seems way past that. I mean, that's got to be in the, you know, again, that whole picture is easily got to be like at least 100 regular cameras at 100 megapixels. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if a person could figure out how it was done.
They had one. I had the link saved. They had a 360-degree camera that did that, and they had it on they had several different years, and that I think since 2012, I believe. They actually had a 360-degree camera sitting at the 50-yard line, and that. So I don't know exactly how that would work. I tried to do YouTube stuff and try and find out and do some research, but I'm gonna have to find some more or do some more research on that. But I thought it was kind of fascinating on that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know some of
No.
the panoramas that I've taken where I've merged like 8 and 10 pictures together. I've been amazed as to how far in I can zoom in on the resulting picture.
Well,
Well, you have to-
that's why I like the Gigapan machine, because you could set that up with a 200 millimeter lens, and then you just tell it each opposite corners, and it would just shoot it all and
Yeah.
give you all those images, and then you just had to put them together. And even with people walking, because of one shot to the next, it's the stitching program that sort of makes sure you don't have some of that stuff.
Would you have
But,
to have different focal lengths or focal points?
Well, it sort of takes a lot of that into account. When I used a 200 millimeter lens and shot, I was using it to take pictures of buildings to get really high resolution images of the buildings. And you could get down to an individual brick on the building, because each shot was 45 megapixels, and I would take 12 shots generally. So that was a pretty wide area. Now that, a football stadium would be a lot bigger. I actually at one time quoted a company to do something like that back in it's beginning of the digital days when we had low quality digital cameras, but I had this Gigapan machine. And it was amazing. You would create a 1 gigabyte file that you could zoom in and see. I saw one example of it from somebody else that shot a cityscape, and you could zoom in and see individual shoes sitting on a patio on a side of a building where they had just a little patio stick out and shoes were sitting there. You could zoom in and see just the shoes. So it was amazing what you can do with some of that stuff. I'll have to try to do some research. Maybe I can find out who was doing that and see if we can find out how they did it, because that could be a lot of fun.
That would be a great presentation, or
Yeah. I haven't seen that before, so thanks.
Kind of the opposite end of the scale. I've also used the panorama shots where I don't have a wide enough angle lens to cover the area I want to cover. So
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Jim, for sharing that. I thought that was really cool for everyone to see. I mean, it's amazing how you could zoom into the people.
Yeah.
It is fun to do that and just go there once just to play with it. Because again, as photographers, we always are impressed when we get our 60 megapixel camera, or as I say, this Fuji that's out at 100 megapixel or whatever. But obviously these cameras are so far beyond that. This is just unbelievable what's really available and what's out there.
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, it's 11 o'clock, actually, just a tad past, and I see Hazel has made it. Good morning, Hazel. Thank you for coming. We've got Hazel here, is award-winning photographer. She talked at our Menominee Falls Camera Club. I don't remember if it was this year or last season is how I consider it. And she talked about textures and creating textures and all that type of stuff. She has a lot of really good stuff. I sent everybody her email, or not her email, her website info. She's very active in doing stuff. And today she's going to come and talk to us about HDR, and not that grungy look that HDR used to be known for. And I look back at some of my HDR images and boy, I have a lot of grungy stuff and I go, that's not what I'd like to do today anymore. So I asked Hazel to come and she's going to do a presentation on HDR, the natural look. So I'll turn it over to you, Hazel. Thank you for
Thank you,
coming.
Jeffrey. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me
Hi.
today. As Jeffrey mentioned, I'm going to show you some different programs you can use to create your HDR images. There are several, and I'm sure we all have our favorites if you've done any of this, and I know I do. So, and I'm going to tell you kind of why I like one over the other for different things. I've got lots of different things for you. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to start with just 2 quick slides and just a little overview of HDR if you haven't done it before. So let's do it this way so you can see it a little better. Okay, so HDR, what does that really mean? HDR is high dynamic range because our eyes can see a lot more light than our cameras can capture. HDR will let us capture detail in the highlights and shadows that we may not be able to do in that one photograph. So then you would use a program like Photomatix, Nick HDR, Aurora, etc., that can tone map the image. If possible, use a tripod, although there are times when I do it handheld. I usually just pick something I can line up, a focus point of the camera on, like a window in a building or something like that. And of course, it's better to shoot in RAW because we will capture more detail. And it's always still about the composition. You're not going to make an image great if you don't, pay attention to those things that we should all look for when we're framing any image. So then to capture our series of shots, you're going to bracket your images 3, 5, 7, or whatever is needed to capture the range of light in your scene. Generally, you'll shoot them 1 stop apart, like a -2, -1, your average, and then your +1, +2. And this is a series. I'm going to show you how I process this one in just a moment. And then you can look at your histogram on your camera to make sure that you're capturing all of the range of light in the scene. You also want to use the same f-stop throughout. In this case, I used f22. I was at ISO 200 with 24 millimeters on my 18-135. And then once you get your scene focused, you also want to switch your lens to manual so it doesn't keep trying to focus as you go along. You want it to stay focused the same way. So with that, we'll get to the fun stuff and start processing. So what we're going to do first, I'm actually going to start with my favorite program, which is Photomatix. I've been using this one the longest for quite some time. They were on version 2 then, now they're on version 6.3, and they don't update it every year. It's kind of, they have some little updates here and there, and then a major one every now and then. So I'm actually going to reduce my Photoshop and that. And that, and I'm going to open it as a, excuse me, as a standalone. They do have a plugin for Lightroom, but not for Photoshop. I usually just use it as a standalone. And you can either, like I have 2 monitors, I can select my images from the other monitor and just drag them over. If you don't have 2 monitors, you can either click the browse and load or the open button, and you'll just go to the file where your images are. So I have to scroll down to that here, go to my seminars, and so the ones I'm going to start with are 2A through 2E, and I have these already all set up and ready to go, so I know those are the right images. And then I'll say open. And then you get this screen so you can double check and make sure you have the right images. If you drag them in from a second screen, it skips this step because I guess it figures you've been able to look at them, so you'll already know that you have the proper ones. So you can check and make sure you don't have any duplicates as far as exposures go. And then we'll next choose our merge option. And then from here, we're going to make a few choices that I usually use pretty much the same things here and don't really change this very much. I always have it align my source images. So if anything was misaligned a little bit, it will look for that and line that up. And then if it does have to shift anything, I tell it to crop the images, which it's usually pretty minor. So you don't even really notice that it's cropped. One of the important things they added a couple of versions ago was you now can choose whether you were shooting on a tripod or handheld and how much you think it might have moved. This one was on a tripod. And I always let it reduce the noise on all of my images and chromatic aberrations. And what those are is sometimes you get that color fringing when it merges the image. Sometimes you'll get like a green or a reddish fringe around the edges, especially when it's like near a sky or a brighter area. On this particular image, I didn't have anything moving in my image, but I'll show you this on our next one. And the one thing I do like about this program too, if you're not sure what a function does, if you hover over it, you'll have a box that will tell you exactly what that function will do. And then we'll go ahead and merge it. I have these converted to JPEGs just to make it process a little faster. These were shot as raw files, but all I did was open them and resave them as JPEGs just to make it go a little bit faster for a presentation. And it takes a few seconds, and then it's going to open your merged file. If we were doing deghosting, there would be one more step in between, but I'll show you that one with the next image. So once you get in here, you do have presets that you can use. Some are going to be really good. It defaults usually to the detailed, which is kind of the minimal kind of grunge look. And then when you scroll down, you'll see some that I don't even know why they're in here because they're so horrible that I can't imagine ever using some of these. They do have some black and white ones, but I like to usually process my image first as a color image, and then I would convert it to monochrome with like silver effects or something else. So for this one, we're going to go back up, and I think I might, let's try a couple and see what we got. And you'll see these sliders over here all change and move depending on the preset that you have. And I think I'm going to go with the detailed because it has the best lighting in the grass area, as well as on the Canon. And the issue I had and why I did HDR for this particular shot was because the Canon was so dark. This was before sunrise. We were at Gettysburg. And yeah, I wanted to hold that pretty color in the sky. So if I shot for my Canon, then my sky was blown out. And we also had that nice fog in the valley. So once you've selected a preset, you can come over to the left side and then you can fine tune it to your image. So you can see this one doesn't really look like an HDR image. It just is a well exposed shot. But you can go in, and if you want to open up any of the shadows, you can come in here and do that. This is the strength of the actual preset, so you can make that higher or lower as you wish. The tone compression, again, if you hover over these, if you look in the lower left, you'll see what that slider does. And then you have detail contrast. I kind of like it where it was. Sometimes I'll move them just to see what I like better. And then you can scroll down. You can see we have smoothing highlights. There's a white point, a black point. Micro smoothing smooths out the enhancement of the small details. So that will have the effect of reducing noise in a sky. So sometimes you may need to do that. And it defaults to just a little bit. We can try a little bit more. That actually looks nice. And then you can come into your color settings, adjust your saturation, temperature, and brightness. And then we'll talk about this one later. This was also something added, I think it was in version 5, where if you have one area that's maybe still exceptionally bright or something, you can blend it with one of your source images. And I'll show you how I did that on some windows. So once you've gotten through all of here, I'm just going through my notes real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything. Then you're going to go ahead and finish this, and we'll say finish. Now remember, when you get to this point, your image is still not fully processed. I haven't done anything to these source images other than bring them in here and merge it. This box slid over a little bit. So there are some choices here at the end if you need to straighten an image, or if you want to crop here, or there's some contrast settings. I tend to do more of this once I get to Photoshop and whatever processing I want to do. I like to use Topaz sometimes still for some of my creative effects, or I'll use Luminar a lot more for my editing these days. But here you can see, you can, adjust highlights if needed. This is going to brighten them. I want to come up just a little there. And then this would be if you wanted to darken shadow. So you can't really open the shadows as much. We probably could. Nope, it doesn't let us move that. It just shows the curve, but it doesn't let you really change it from there. So then we'll say done. And then we'll save our file. So file, save image. And it takes a few seconds again, because it's finishing doing all of the settings that we did. So now it's been saved as a TIFF file, and it will it won't save over anything. It will give you a new file, and it gives you a combined name, like whatever my original name was, and it will say that I've used, this image plus 4 more. And then we'll say, okay. And that's all there is to it. So now from here, I can show you a couple that I've edited. So this was after I did some final tweaking. I intensified the color in the sky just a hair, and then do a little crisping up with them. Either I use in Topaz Studio, I like the AI clear filter and detail, or I'll do the same thing in Luminar with structure and detail, just to add that. I prefer those over Photoshop sharpening. Any questions? Oh, and I forgot to mention, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat box, or even unmute yourself and ask them as I go along. I do have the chat box open on my second
Lisa,
monitor.
we got
Yes.
one question there.
Sure.
Using Topaz, how does its HDR compared with Photomatics? Are you going to talk about Topaz's Does Topaz have an
Topaz
HDR?
doesn't have an HDR.
Yeah, I
they
didn't
only
think
have an
so.
HDR preset in Studio.
Yeah.
I am going to talk about Nick.
Okay.
We're going to do Nick.
That was the other one.
Yeah, and Luminar has a new HDR extension.
Okay.
They had Aurora HDR was their version, which
Right.
I've only used a little bit, but they just came out with this new, they're going to be adding extensions to Luminar Neo. And I tried their HDR, and I'm actually not real thrilled with it. And I'll show you why.
I like their old one. I still have their
Aurora
old one.
works good. Yeah, that one works
Yeah.
fine. But this new
Yeah.
one, there's just very limited adjustments that you can do.
Right.
And I got some really heavy chromatic aberrations, some color fringing, and there's no way to get rid of it. There's no settings to adjust that. So
Yeah.
I was not impressed with that.
So when you do the other Topaz stuff, you're just doing that through Photoshop, right?
Yep, I like to do all my work on layers.
Yeah.
So I would, once I brought this in, that's why there's a second layer, and usually I rename them. And then I would just go in through Filter, Studio, which I'm very disappointed that they're no longer updating and selling. I've been using it for a long time, almost since they've been around. And I've done a lot of webinars for them back when we were actually doing webinars. But they've decided that they say there's enough other programs out there like it. There isn't anything that does everything that Studio does. Although because people have been asking me, well, what else should I use if I can't do this? I do monthly webinars of my own that are free. And next month, I'm going to feature some alternative software. I've been doing some searching around, and there's actually more out there than I thought there was. but again, they're
Yeah,
not as comprehensive as this all in one place
yes.
kind of a thing.
Studio was great. I'm
Yeah,
still using
I
it
just
too.
love it. So I always come in here and go under add a filter, and I'll run AI clear, and the blue bar is it processing. And that just really like crisps everything up and gives you that nice look. And then if I need a little more detail, and this I've already processed, so we're kind of doing it on top of what was done before, but then I'll come in and do precision detail. And I'll sometimes move this overall small and medium details, usually between 10 and 20, 25. You don't usually need a lot, but that'll really make any details pop. Sometimes I'll use the large details, but not as often. Usually it's the finer things that you really just want to crisp up a little bit. And then once you accept it, that brings you back to Photoshop. And I always duplicate my layer before I do that because Topaz does not make its own layer the way that Nik products do. So that's my particular workflow there.
Hazel, can I ask you
yes,
a question?
Absolutely.
Have you ever tested Lightroom or Photo Raw for doing HDRs?
I actually have not, and I know some people do use the Photo Raw for that, and I should do that. I should actually make myself a note to do that. That's like and a lot of people ask me about working with smart objects, and I know I should do that more, but that just never really became part of my workflow. I guess back when I first started with Photoshop, I started with Photoshop Elements, and it didn't have that capability, so I got used to doing everything on layers. And that's just how my workflow has, progressed over the years. So
Okay, because I had heard one of the advantages of the Lightroom and the Photo Raw is that it actually does the HDR and keeps them in RAW format, which gives you tremendous versatility and adjustment.
Yes, I have heard that as well. So thank you for reminding me of that. I will check that one out. I may have to add that to this seminar for the future. I just actually went through and updated almost all of my seminars. I have 2 more to do with some new images and some, because software keeps changing. So I wanted to add in, the new Luminar HDR and that kind of stuff. So next up, we're going to do, let's close this one. Just close that. So next we're going to do one, I'm going to demonstrate how to get rid of ghosting if somebody is walking through your image or moved in the image. So I'm going to select this one. I'm using 3 images, and I'm just going to drag them from my other screen because it makes it go faster. And you can see how it kind of skipped that first panel. So now in here, I do want to say show options to remove ghosts. And I like the deghosting in Photomatix better than any other program I've tried. And I'll show you why, because you just have more control. So we're going to let it go ahead and process. Again, these were raw files that I just converted to JPEGs to make it go a little quicker. So this is the screen. This is not done merging yet. This is where we're going to tell it what we want to deghost. So if you look over here on the right, that's my husband walking through my picture. You can see a shadow of him here, his arm in here in the doorway, and then there was one image that he was not in at all. The other thing I wanted to do in this image is I have some blurriness, especially on this front branch right here. And I thought with the 3 images merged, it made the water wheel too much movement, too blurred. I wanted to be able to see a little bit more in there. So with any of the other products like Nik and Aurora and all the others, it decides for you, or you have to tell it one image to choose to use as the deghosting. Where here, I can go in and I'm going to do this selectively rather than letting the program do it automatically. I'm going to tell it where I want it to look for deghosting. And then once you circle it, you right click in the middle and say mark selection as a ghosted area. I'm going to mark over, and you don't have to be super precise with the drawing. And then I also wanted to check, especially this area I know has got a lot of movement in those front branches there. So now that I've indicated where I want it to look, I can preview how the program is going to fix those. And this happens really quick, so you have to watch real fast. And done. So you can see there's Dave is gone. Hi, bye, honey. My water wheel has a little less blur, and now my tree branch over here is not blurred. So if it did something you don't like, you can go back to the selection mode and reselect something. Sometimes the automatic works pretty well, and it defaults to that once you've made your selection, then it will automatically choose what image it feels best works for that area. So you don't have to decide. Because sometimes when you're shooting a really large bracket, there's areas that maybe are really dark, and it's hard to tell if that should be the one that you want to use or not. So I like this function in this program better than in any of the others. So then we'll say, okay, once we're happy with that, and it will finish doing our merge.
This deghosting, you have to have more than one picture, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, if you're just processing one image kind of as a pseudo HDR, then it has nothing to replace it with. It won't like clone or heal anything out. It's selecting one image for that area. So now we have our finished image. And because this particular image has lots of detail with all the wood grain and everything going on in it, I decided to go not super grungy, but something that really would bring out some more of this detail in here. So maybe push it a little bit farther than I might in one image. And some of the ones I like are these basic painterly ones. And remember, once you choose one of these, you can always back off the strength so that it's not too overly grungy. So this one I actually ended up using, rather than that, I scrolled down, and they've kind of been focusing the last few years on real estate photography. So they have some really good presets for that. And sometimes they even work for things that are not buildings. So let's see, I'm trying to find the one I wanted, the realistic interior. There it is. So we have that one here. That one's a little bright. That one actually looks pretty good to me. So I've brought out a little more detail in the wood, but yet it's still not overly crunchy. I could bring the strength up a little bit more if I wanted to accent that more, or you can pull it back down. And I think most of that looks pretty good from here. And I did change the tone compression. Let's try that a little. And that will also modify, it brightened it up a little bit. I kind of like that back down there a little. And I think my luminance is okay. Again, I like to do a lot of the actual image correction once I get back to Photoshop. But this is a good way to kind of get your basic stuff done. And I'm going to go ahead and just finish that one. And there you have it. When I got back to Photoshop, I did clone out the light flares here in the wheel, and there's one here. But other than that, I think it's it's that great exposure that you wanted without the wheel being all too dark, and then holding the detail and everything else. Any questions on that? Somebody says, what version of Photomatix? This is 6.3, which is the latest one.
I was going
Okay.
to mention it doesn't give you any options, but in my new Canon R6, it will take HDR photos and automatically give me a JPEG of the combination of those photos.
Yes. When I started shooting HDR, a while ago. I think I was using, I have Canon, I'm still using the 70D. I had the 40D, and you could only bracket up to 3 images and it doesn't merge them. But sometimes you need more than 3. So I got in the habit of manually bracketing, and I still do it that way. So I'll, look at my scene. I may take, put the your guide, in your viewer kind of in the middle and see how that looks and see, okay, am I much brighter or much darker? And then I'll go from there. Do I need, a set of 3 or 5 or more? And I'm going to show you a couple examples that were kind of extreme. Can you zoom in on the detail while you're working? I think you can. Yes, when we're in the other screen, you can. And I'll show you that in another one when we get back to that. So let's close this one. So something to be careful of when you're merging things. And I see somebody, what was Trey Ratcliffe's influence on your HDR style? When I did start shooting it, I used to follow him more and kind of see how he did it. So I did get some ideas probably from there. I read his stuff once in a while now. I just don't have time to read everybody's things out there. But yeah, he was one of the really good early adapters of that. So I'm going to grab 3 images. These are raw files. I did not convert these. I do have some ghosting, and I'm going to leave my other settings. I was not on a tripod, however. I was handheld. We'll go with standard. One of my camera clubs, this was, gosh, actually it was 2011. I see the date on the photo. So these are older images. We went to Boston for a weekend. We did a whale watch cruise, and then we did one day we walked around the city on the Freedom Trail. So I was shooting this image of the Paul Revere statue in the Old North Church, and I really did a bad job with this image, but it's a great one to show what not to do, because I didn't shoot enough shots. I only did 3, and I really didn't get the details of the shadows really well on the statue. But there's another reason I wanted to show you this particular one. So I'm going to first go in, and there's movement in these edges of the branches here. So I'm going to just kind of do that. And I'm going to, in case, we'll have it check those. And I think this one I had some movement. Then we can do our preview. You can see our branches are nice and sharp now. So we'll say okay. So I like to include this one as the what not to do. And something to watch out for as you start choosing your presets. And some people don't like to use presets at all. I always figure that, the companies who create these programs spend a lot of time and money to create them. So why not use them as a starting point, and then you can fine tune them from there. So you'll notice with some of these presets, and obviously that may not be the best preset anyway, but when you have something against sky, you need to be careful about haloing, because if you push it too far, then you start getting a very gray sky and that lighter halo around the edges. So that's something to always watch for when you're choosing some of these. The one I ended up using is Vibrant. Where'd it go? And that one was the one that most opened up the shadows for me. Like I said, I really should have gone farther with the bracketing on this one. And I have a little bit of grayness to my sky, so then we can do some adjustments. So I brought the strength back on this a little bit. I brought the lighting to, let's see, I want to do actually weight clip. I brought down to 1. I don't know if that's too far. think I need to update these notes. I must not have gone over this individual project here. And I want to see what the black will do. Yes, now we're losing our shadows again. So sometimes it's a fine line that you have to work to get everything exactly as you want it. Especially, like I said, in this case, I didn't really do a great job of bracketing. So we can brighten it back up a little bit. I think the sky is still a little too gray. So I may actually try a different preset that will give me a better look there. And even though some of these are called interior, they also work good on landscape. So don't always, you know, oh, well, it's not an interior shot, so I shouldn't use that one. I find, actually, that's the one I wanted, vibrant too. That, you know, they work, doesn't really matter what it's called. So let's bring our strength back a little. And our lighting to 2. And you'll notice these settings are different too, depending on the preset that you select, these will change. And so I don't want to go too dark because then I start blocking in those shadows. So I could pull down my brightness a little once I get to Photoshop and I work like with Luminar or Topaz, I can adjust that further. So right now I'm trying to get the best I can get for the shadows. And that's probably about as good as we're going to do in this particular image. So in the finish, I did do a couple changes. And I did do, no, I don't want to do that. And I really don't want to darken the shadow. So we're going to leave that, I think, as is. And we'll just say done. And then that would be what I would then take into probably Luminar and finish processing. Any questions? Oh, so we wanted to, shoot, I forgot to look to show you how to zoom in again. You got to remember to do that on the next one once you're in there. All right. So you can process one image to give you, it's not a true HDR because you only have the one image. You can create brackets in Lightroom and merge them that way, but you can also get a pretty good result with just one image. So I'm going to drag in my image. And from here, I'm going to do my realistic preset. And then I made some changes to this one. So I upped the strength of that preset. And what I really wanted was to bring out some of the details in here. So if you want to zoom in, you do have a slider here so that you can go in up to 150%. So if you want to see a particular area, and then you can also, if you click here, you'll get a close-up, like a loop view, so you can see more detail that way. So yes, you can zoom in to look at your details as you're working. And then you can also fit it back to screen if you want to see the entire image. And you can also do a side-by-side if you want to do that, so that you can see already how much we've changed this image just from here. And yeah, I probably could have done the same thing, you know, with like Luminar or even with Lightroom adjustments, but this is another option when sometimes you have a more extreme lighting situation and you want to, you know, really make everything pop. So I adjusted strength, the lighting, I brought down a little bit, micro contrast, add a little bit more of that. And the white clip I brought down, and the black clip brought up. And then I brought the brightness down a little bit, about there. And that's it. And then you got your finishing, and there it is. So that definitely looks a whole lot better than where we started. Any questions on that one? Perfect. All right. So I'm going to skip around a little because I know we're scheduled for an hour. So I want to make sure I get to some of the other programs as well, and I can come back to these. I am going to show you one more here in Photomatics, because this is one that I did. I ended up using 7 images, and I'm going to drag over my other screen for a second just to show you this. So this was the interior of a church, but it's actually a basilica in outside of Buffalo, New York. And you can see by the numbers of my files, I used 6.5, 6.7, 6.8, 6.9, and then I jumped 7.1, 7.3, and 7.5. I was really trying to hold these windows, and I kept shooting shots, you know, one stop, one stop, one stop, to really try and hold that detail. So I'm going to end up using these 7. And let me pull this over here, and then I can drag these in. And again, I converted these to JPEGs. And this does not have any ghosting, so we can uncheck that one. And we'll merge that. And this will, I'll show you how to do the blending in Photomatics. Takes a little bit longer because there's more images. Okay, so for this one, I used Interior 3. And I took my brightness back to 0. So even though I had all of those images and really tried to hold the windows, I think there's still a little bit bright in some area, you know, overall. And it was a cloudy day out too. It wasn't even a bright sunny day. So what I can do is I can choose to blend certain areas, and I'm going to do this manually with a particular photo. So I'm going to use the brush. I'm going to blend this with image, the darkest image. Okay. And you can either use a lasso tool or a brush tool, and the brush size, that's about right for that. I don't want it to be super soft, so this I actually can kind of go somewhere in the middle. And there is a detect edges, so it will do a pretty good job of keeping within the lines for you. And then you can also change the sensitivity, and I have it all the way up so that it will look for those edges. And then all you do is brush over where you want it to merge that one image in. So it's just pulling from that darkest image and bringing in some more of that color. And I'm doing this rather quickly, so I'm not probably as precise as I should be. And if you decide you need to change the image you're blending with, you can do that as well. You can use, you know, you could change which image you're using as you go along. And then I would do this one. And then I would use a much smaller brush to get around the top of that statue there. But just so you get the idea. And then close that when you're done. And then you would finish. And I'll show you my finished image here. I'll open it in Photoshop in a sec. Let's close that one. And there's our finished image. And you can see how much detail that this has retained. You know, with the windows, and the writing is all really crisp. This was on a tripod. This is up near where my husband grew up, and we were up there for, I think it was one of his class reunions, and Friday night we were meeting some people, and as we're driving, we passed this basilica, and I'm like, wow, what a beautiful church. We need to photograph this. And he's like, oh, it's Our Lady of Victory, but it was nicknamed Father Baker's back when my husband was a kid. And because they used to threaten to, if you misbehave, send you to Father Baker's, because they had a juvenile home. And he's like, yeah, my grandfather used to work there. I'm like, you've known me for, at that point, 20 something, 30 years, and you've never brought me here before. So the next day we went back, and there wasn't any services going on, and they let us come in and take pictures and use the tripods, and they were very nice. So I had some really great pictures. Okay, so next up, we're going to do, let's see. Let me skip ahead here. I want to find, let's do one in Nick. So to do the Nick program, you can either, if you have your Photoshop open, you can use the panel and select it from here. But you're actually going to open this program, you don't even have to be in Photoshop to do that. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I take that back, you do. But you can either use it from here, and you'll see there are two HDRs. There's one when you're using multiple exposures, and then there is one for a single image. It's a separate one. Or the other way, if you don't have the panel set up, if you go to File, Automate, and then you can select the Nick Merge to HDR Effects Pro 2. So either way, it gets you to the same place. And that will open up. I can close that down. And then from here, we're going to select our images. You just click on Open. It's going to go to that folder again, which defaulted to something else I was working with. Seminars, HDR. So for this one, we're going to use these down here. So I'm going to use 5 images. These 5. Say Open. You can double check that you have the right ones. This does let you create a smart object if you wish, which you can then go back and edit. And then we'll click Merge dialog. And it takes a few seconds. These are raw files. And there's a question, what would double HDR effect do? If you did an HDR after you've done the merge, I think is your question. That would definitely give you some real grungy effects, I would think, because you're applying, all this sharpening and effects on top of another. I haven't tried that. That would be interesting. You never know what you might come up with. It would be worth a shot.
Hazel, the other question was for bracketing. I don't know.
Oh, yes, I see that there.
Yeah.
Do you vary your bracket exposures or use the same, i.e. 2 and 2? I usually do 1-stop increments because I know because I'm doing it manually when I turn the wheel on my Canon camera, each click is 1/3 of a stop. So I can just click it 3 times and know I'm 1 stop and 1 stop, and keep going that way. Once I decide where I want to start, I'll usually start like maybe 2 stops under and see what that looks like. And then work from there. And then sometimes I'll go back and take another set with, more exposures if needed. I always find it's better to shoot more than you think you need and then maybe not use 1 or 2 when you get home, than to, like I did with that Paul Revere statue, not shoot enough and go, well, I missed the shot because I didn't shoot, everything that I needed for the bracketing. Oh, good question. Yeah. Okay. So in this one, now this is the difference from the Photomatics. If we have ghost, I need to do ghost reduction because I know some of the cows were moving. And we're also going to do the chromatic aberration. What I do like here in the Nick one is you can actually zoom in, and as soon as you move one of these sliders, you get this little box that pops up, and you can move around and see if you have that color fringing, like here along the roof line. So then you can move your sliders to try and correct that. Okay. So, and then you can go around the image and look at, come on, now it doesn't want to move. Okay, it's stuck. It doesn't want to let me move it right now. Don't you love it?
Yeah.
So for the deghosting, this is where though you have to tell it which image of these 5 you want to use where it may need the deghosting. So for this one I use, and I have to look at my originals to remember which one this was. I used number D, which was the 4th darkest. I find that it's much more trial and error here because you can't, like now, I can't tell which image I should really be using, even if I look at the originals, because they're very dark in that area. So sometimes they work and sometimes not as much. So now that I've done that, we're going to go ahead and create our HDR. And maybe it's stuck on this box here. I may have to rebring that one in. Alrighty then, because it's not letting me. Oh, there it goes. Let me move that. So let's see. There it goes. Good. Nick does that every now and then, not always, but even today I was doing some lettering in Photoshop, and every now and then, if you try and change the font too many times, it just freezes. It's happened in several versions of Photoshop, so I don't know. It just maybe I have too many fonts in there. I'd have a lot, so I need to reorganize my fonts. I know that. Okay, so while we're here, I'm going to select the panels are just kind of reversed. Your presets are on the left and the controls are on the right. And I went with this one. And then came over to the right, and I'm going to make some changes. So I left this one under the HDR method. I put detail. It kind of has like 5 things here. So I accented that a little bit more. Under tonality, there are more adjustments as far as like shadows and highlights and things like that. So I opened up those a little. And then under the color tab, I moved my temperature just slightly warmer. And then from here, I then went back to, come on, take it back to Photoshop. And then I used Nick Viveza to fine tune the colors more because I wanted to get rid of a little of the blue tone off of the house. And I'll show you the finished project because we're running short on time. And
yeah, and Hazel, you don't have to worry about the time too much.
Okay,
if you go
good.
over, we're okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
As long as you don't mind.
No, that's fine. Yeah, usually this webinar is a little more than an hour. And I know I always put some extra projects just in case, I don't want to run short on things to show you. So this was my finished one. I did some Viveza. I used AI Clear. I'm not sure why these layers are here. Let's see. Oh, I did some cloning. There was a, let's turn those off for a second. There was another cow here. I did some selections and moved them in there. And then I did some brightness. And then I created a merged layer. Anytime I want to, then say I've done all of these adjustments and I want to go into Topaz or Luminar, something like that. Those programs can only read the top layer. Nick, there's a setting you can change so it will read everything. So I create a merged or a stamped layer, and the shortcut for that is Control Alt Shift E. On a Mac would be Command Option Shift E. And that will combine all of these without flattening them so that if I really needed to, I could delete that layer and come back to some other things. So let's see if I did anything else here. I may have duplicated that, but not really done anything. Oh, this one I did, merged it, and then I cloned out the plane trail and the antenna the lightning rods on the roof there. So this is not too far from us down here in Tennessee now. This is one of the stops I do on my Barnes workshops. And this house keeps getting more and more, loses boards, especially on the back side. There used to be a porch on the back when we first moved here almost 3 years ago. It was drooping, but still attached. And the following winter, it all collapsed. Back there, there's a big pile of wood from that porch roof. All right, so let's close that one. And then before I close this one, I want, shoot. All right, I want to show you a comparison between the Nik version and the version I did in Photomatics, just so you can kind of see that there is a difference when you use the two different programs. I'm going to open both of them side by side. So that's my Nik one. And that's Photomatics. So let's pull this one out and we'll see if we can kind of do a side by side here. So you can see the colors are a little bit different. I actually like the way the sky came out in the Photomatics one better. I think it held more of the yellows in the sky. And sometimes that could be just the different presets, but I like the yellow side, but then the blue side is a little bit darker, where this one, it shows a little more of the clouds. So you could actually take these and blend them together probably at this point if you really wanted to. But it's there, you will see differences between the different programs, you know, the algorithms that they use in the background and that kind of thing. All right, so let's show you the Luminar version. So to use this new, they call them extensions now with Luminar, you need to use it as a standalone. I like to use most of my plugins as plugins, but to get to this function, you have to use the Luminar as a standalone, not through Photoshop. So we're going to go into it. It will open up to your catalog when you use this as a standalone. And you can see I've done some practicing. This is the one I've actually done, but what you would do is add photos. And you add an image, or if you have a whole folder, you could bring them in. And this one we're doing the piano, or actually the organ. So I'm going to use these three and say open. And then I don't know why it defaults to the edit, but if you go back to the catalog, the three are there. It likes to just open the last one up. So we're going to highlight these three, and then we're just going to drag them to the right where this HDR merge extension installed. Before I merge them though, I'm going to go into settings, and these are the only choices you have. If there is something you need to, get rid of ghosting wise, and then we want to auto align it. But you'll notice that if you have ghosting, you will select which image you want to use, but there's nothing about chromatic aberrations in here. And this image, this was the first one I tried in here, and it has a major issue with that. So I wasn't really impressed for that reason. It's nice. I think they're trying to make Luminar an all-in-one. They're coming out with a denoise function. That's going to be the next extension. They have 7 scheduled for this year. And the HDR was the first one. The reducing noise, which is like Topaz denoise, is going to be the next one out. And then there's going to be 2 in each of the next few months. September, October, November, or no, October, November, and December. And I love Luminar, and I am an affiliate for them. I think they're making their pricing module very confusing at this point. I have to kind of reread it myself so that I can convey it to my blog and newsletter readers more clearly, because the extensions are an added cost. But if you do their subscription model rather than buying the software outright, then it includes all of the plugins. So it actually works out a little bit better, but I know not everybody wants to do the subscription, and you can switch to that even if you've already purchased it at a reduced price, and it's a little confusing. I'm amazed that they've been able to do all that they've done in the last 6 months or so, because they are based in the Ukraine. So we all know what they're now working under. Okay, so if we go to it defaults now that it's merged to our HDR merge folder. These are ones I did previously. So this is the one that it just finished merging. So now you can use a preset if you want to. Otherwise, you can go right into the edit mode. And let's see what I did here. Okay. So I went into, and you can see right along this edge of the piano, there is a huge green line that I have no idea how to get rid of, because that wasn't an option in the merging. So that was the one thing I was really a little disappointed about, because that's really not very good to have that in your HDR merge, because that's a dead giveaway of a HDR image. But otherwise it does, a great job, and the program itself is fabulous. I use it all the time. And then you come down and finish developing. I did a little, brightened it up just a little bit. I did some smart contrast. I brought my highlights down and shadows up. And then under color, there is under here somewhere, I have it in my notes nowhere. Oh, under optics, there is an auto defringing, but it doesn't really do a very good job on that. Well, it looks actually, this time it looks like it did do a good job. That looks a lot better. There's still a little bit of green there, but it's a little better than it was. So that is an option here. And then you can also, because there's a slight curve to that, you can try and fix your lens distortion. Let's see if we can get that a little bit straighter. That looks a little better. And then if you have any vignetting, you can adjust that as well. And then under structure, this is what I like to use along with detail to add some sharpening. And then I'll do details again, then this is the same as in Topaz. I'll do the small and the medium a little bit to really crisp it up. And there you have it. That is our finished image. So I also tried this one in Photomatix, and I'll show you this one. And that's what I got in Photomatix. So you can see the difference in the lighting. And this was the merge before I really did any other processing. But I don't have that color fringing that I got over here. So, you kind of have to look at the different programs and decide what works best for you. And I always tell people, if you have the Nik suite, then I would use the Nik HDR. Whatever you have or is part of a program that you like to use works well. So let's close that one. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to do one more for you. Let me go back to Photomatics. Where'd it go? Okay. And this is just an image I really like. This was from an old, they call it the ghost town out in Sedona, or just outside of Sedona in Jerome. And there is a little bit of ghosting in the weeds there. And this is one that I did push a little bit more because it's a grungy old truck. And then I did a little topaz to really make the colors pop. So you can see these weeds are all really blowing around. I did end up cloning out a few, but we might as well, at least get rid of the movement in them. Kind of go this way. And actually, this whole thing is back there is not too bad because I kind of darkened that down anyway. Oh, we need to get that area too. And might as well do that one, even though I cloned it out, but it'll be easier to clone it. And then do our preview. And there you go. Now they're all nice and sharp down there, other than the wind blowing. And we can finish processing. Sometimes it seems to zip right through, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Okay, so for this one, I went with the Painterly preset and then made some changes. I took the tone compression down. Detail contrast up. I changed the white point. And the black point. And again, it's different for every image, and just move the sliders and see what looks best for your particular image. And then for the leaves in the back here, I decided to blend in a different image. So I'm going to choose the little bit darker image, the -1. Click on here. Oops. Yeah. Change that again. And I just used the lasso tool. And let's see if come on. Hey. And don't you love it? It doesn't want to stop. It's like when you do it even in Photoshop sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. Whew, finally. All right. And then we will go ahead and so I blended it with that darker image. All right. And then you can always change the opacity of that image too, if you wanted to, which is kind of cool. And I should have gone around that to take that out of it, but just so you get a idea of what you can do here. And then we'll go into our finish. And I did crop just a hair from here, which I typically do back in Photoshop, but I just cropped a little bit from the bottom and the right, just a teeny little bit. And I'll say done. And then I did do some going into Topaz Studio, and I'll just open the finished one into Photoshop for you. And I did push it a little farther with a preset. So there was the finished merged image, and then I went in and really kind of gave it a little bit more grunge just because of what it was, and I really wanted to accent all of this. I think I used a couple textures on this one too. I used a preset called Sticks and Stones, and then I added a border texture on it to darken the edges just a little bit. And there you have it. Any questions? You guys have been good. You had some really good questions. I'll open this up for you, and I know you've gotten some of this info already. Jeffrey, if you want, I'll send you a PDF when we're done that has some other info and kind of details on some of this stuff if people want to read it.
Sure.
We've been doing a virtual version of our creative photography conference. We've done 4 of them. This is going to be our 5th one coming up in February. We did 3 live conferences when we were in New England. And I tried to do one down here, but then COVID hit, and we know what happened with that. So after postponing it twice, I threw in the towel, and we decided to do a virtual one. And I'll never go back to doing a live one again. It's so much easier. We get people attending. Yeah, we get people attending from all over the world. I have, thanks to Topaz, I have lots of followers in Australia and the UK and Canada and some other countries. And so people can, it's 2 days, 13 hours, 8 speakers. And the early bird I run until like the week before the event, just because I try and encourage people to do it earlier. $39, and you get speaker notes and a goodie bag and with some freebies and things, and I get door prizes, and you can watch the recordings for 60 days. So if you miss something, can't be there, or you just want to rewatch it. And then I did my first course this year, creating your own textures. And if you'd like to come to Tennessee, we do Barnes and Backroads workshops in the spring and the fall that are a lot of fun. And there you have it. And if you sign up for my blog, I've been blogging 3 times a week. I think I'm going to go back to 2. 3 is a little much. But on Sunday, I also give away free textures in my Sunday Sampler blog. So feel free to join me there.
Great. Yeah. And for anybody that's in a different camera club than Menominee Falls, she does a great job of different courses. I know we have her in September.
Yeah,
coming to do
actually coming up.
Yeah, iPhone photography.
Yes. I'm actually that's my next program to update. That's my last one. I want to add in a couple new apps that I found, and it's iPhone and it's creative processing. So it's using apps that you can do textures, and you can blend images and all kinds of fun stuff. I really love working with textures and the creative post-processing. So you'll see some of that with your iPhone as well. And a lot of the apps I'm using are also Android. So if you don't have an iPhone, you can still watch.
Great. Yeah, so her texture app or texture program was really good when she did it for Camera Club. And we got a number of people in our club that I know are doing textures, so they got a lot out of it. So
good.
It's been great. Yeah, send me whatever and I'll pass it on to the group.
I will do that, and I'll stop sharing. You can chit chat.
Can let everybody know we had a good turnout today of about 34 people on a nice day. I know a number of them it's so nice out in Wisconsin today that a lot of people
it's pretty warm
shooting.
Here today.
So,
it's supposed to be in the mid to upper 80s, and it's been really humid. The summer has been exceptionally humid.
It's like pouring rain up here in the center of the state right now.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
We had a storm actually yesterday morning. It woke me up at 5:30 with thunder, and then last night we went over to it's a farm that has this big barn, and they've been doing weddings for the last couple summers. And they're doing a concert there next weekend that Dave and I are going to do some photos for them. So one of the bands was going to do a like sound check practice last night, like 6 o'clock. And we said, oh, come over and we can test out, what we want to do. Just as we got there, we could see the clouds rolling in. We no sooner got to the barn and the group was already moving their stuff inside, and the skies opened up for about 20 minutes, and the thunder was so loud, and it's a metal roof on the barn, so the rain on that plus the echoing of the thunder, it was like, whoa. It was a little scary.
Crazy.
But yeah, it definitely opened up. So needless to say, they didn't get to do their sound check, but they're going to try and do it tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Later in the
Yeah, the
afternoon.
weather's been strange, but today in Wisconsin, at least down in the southern part of the state, it's like in the 70s and nice and low humidity.
Yeah,
But
that's
we
my
got
kind of
rain
weather.
coming tomorrow. So it sounds like Tony's got the rain now, and it's probably heading our way soon.
Yeah.
But I know a couple people are up. Well, one guy that joins us is up at Price County photographing a fair. So
Okay.
that's why Marty's not here. He's out having fun shooting the
There you go.
state fair. So, or county
That's
fair, I should say. But
Awesome.
no,
Well, I hope
Great
you all
job.
enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank Another great program, and look forward to the September Menominee Falls Club meeting where we
Thank
can
you.
hear you, John.
Oh, I appreciate that, Ellen. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. Hope you all got a little taste of, what you can do with it and some of the different programs. Like I said, I tend to go to the Photomatics as my first choice just because I've been using it longer and I'm comfortable with it and it's easy. But I do use the Nik one too at times. So
yeah.
Thank
I know
you, guys.
one year I took all of them and I tested them all out so I could see.
yeah,
And there were
There
quite a
is-
few because I added Lightroom.
Yep.
Yeah, I had Nik. I had the Aurora HDR and Photomatics, plus Photoshop. And
Mhm.
I don't like Photoshop's HDR.
Yeah, I was gonna say I tried that one a while ago, and I'm like, yeah, no, we'll
But,
skip that one. I don't even
yeah.
show that one because I was not at all impressed with that one.
No, but the
Um,
Lightroom one does work nice.
Okay, I'm gonna have to give
Only
that one a
because
try.
it gives you a raw DNG
Yeah.
file
That's is a
with them
good
all
thing.
blended together as a 32-bit file. So
Mhm.
then you can take it, of course, and do whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you're not into the Lightroom part, it's hard. And I know a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, I use Lightroom. I just, I don't do as much. I'll do some basic tweaking sometimes, to
Yeah.
an image, but then I'll come in and either use Photoshop or Luminar or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I would say the Lightroom defringe part works pretty good when you do get the defringe
okay.
problem.
Mhm.
Try the defringe in Lightroom. I found
Okay.
that
I definitely will.
has fixed some things up when you can't get the defringe in other areas. But
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I always keep learning too. We all do. You never know all that there is to know about all of these programs,
nope.
especially Photoshop and things like that, because there's just, things keep changing. There's always little tidbits that, you just never realized were there. So I always
Yeah.
love watching other people's programs as well, because you always learn,
Yeah,
for sure.
it's
what keeps it
changing
fun.
so fast.
Yeah.
I was going to ask with Topaz, I see they're bringing out a new program. Have you played with that one yet?
I have. I did get one of the beta
The
versions. And
betas?
what this is doing, it's really not, it's new, but it's combining the denoise, the sharpen, and the gigapixel into one product.
Yeah.
So it makes it more convenient. Instead of having them be individual plugins, you can do them all in one place. And it works fine. I don't, didn't have any issues with it.
They didn't add the special effects that they had, the textured stuff from the Topaz
No,
Studio.
I
I was
wish.
hoping maybe that would get me to buy that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to keep bugging them.
I've tried, and I know a couple of even my readers have emailed them, and one of them forwarded me a response she got, and it was kind of their, why they're not going that route. And they just feel that there are other things out there that can do those things, and they wanted to focus on the AI products because they also have a video AI if you're into doing videos.
Yeah.
But it's like, gosh, I mean, you guys had such an awesome product here.
Yep.
With everything that it can do, and that there is nothing else that, like I said, does it all in one place. I found
No.
things that will do, the different painterly effects like impression or, certain things, but everything is more segregated in separate programs. So I'm going to keep
Yeah.
using it as long as it keeps working on my computer. And,
No,
it works for what
am
I do.
too. It's frustrating that they gonna stop
I'm
supporting
hoping
it.
maybe down the line they'll sell it to someone like, with the Nick ended up with a different company. So
Yeah.
who knows? We can only hope.
Yeah. No, it's
And they're a small company, so that's another reason I guess they wanted to focus on just the certain products, because they're only like 20 people. It's not a big, huge, this isn't Adobe with thousands of developers.
Yeah.
I was down there a few years ago. They're in Texas, and I was at a conference for travel writing, and they were a couple hours away. So I stayed and rented a car and drove up, and this was when Heath Robinson was still there, and they were still doing the webinars and all. And it was good to meet everybody. I met the owner, and we went to lunch and got to learn a little more about the background. But they actually started by doing stuff for the medical industry. This creative software is not what started this company.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. It's just funny that everybody's doing AI and the texture stuff, nobody's doing that.
Yep.
So you would think it would be a nice little niche for them to just add into all their other stuff and keep going. But yeah, it's tough. But I think it'd be harder to be fighting. You got Luminar and On One and everybody else.
Yeah, it's like everybody is doing the AI stuff now, and a lot of them are coming, like Luminar now coming out with, the denoise, and they're going to be doing some other like sharpening and things that are going to directly compete with Topaz. So I don't know. I guess it's the way it's all going, but
it's crazy.
What do we know?
Yep. Well, we're going to see. October, we have somebody that's going to be, what's his name? Vanelli.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. He's going to be on in October talking about Luminar. So
there you go. That'll be
get
a good
our little bit of education on Luminar.
Definitely.
I can't keep up with all these different ones.
I know. If I didn't teach them, I wouldn't be probably using some of them as much as I do, but I really do like Luminar. I use it quite a bit.
Yeah, I stopped at 4. So
yeah.
I just couldn't do the updates, and then I had On One as well. But
yeah, no, people, I don't have the On One program, and it's like, do I need another editing program?
Yeah.
And but I know people really love it. The ones who use it do love it. So
when I was doing portraiture, On One was great for portraiture, but for regular stuff, I liked Luminar better and Nick better. So I use those two. But yeah, everybody has one that they like. So
absolutely. And that's why they make all these different ones, because there's, we all like different things.
And whatever works for you. And
absolutely.
I've been seeing a lot of different people in different ways that they work. It's sort of interesting. So.
Yes, definitely.
Alrighty. Well, great. If nobody else has questions for Hazel, we'll say thank you again.
Appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Great little talk on HDR. Hopefully everybody can get some use out of it.
For sure. Well, thanks for having me, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll see you in a few weeks for Menominee Falls Camera Club.
There you go. Alrighty. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Well, Thanks everybody for coming. September, I don't have anything set up yet, working on it. I know that a lot of people are going to be gone in September because of the PSA Photo Festival. So we'll have something, but I don't think we'll have a guest speaker next month. Excuse me, October, we are going to have Vanelli from Luminar talking about Luminar stuff. Probably Neo, undoubtedly. So we'll have more information as we get closer to the October meeting. So, and when I get information from Hazel on that stuff, I will pass that on to everybody else in one of our next emails that I send out to this group. So just want to say thanks for everybody showing up, and we'll see you next month. Have a good weekend. It looks like it might be halfway decent for some of you.
Jeff?
Yeah, Tony?
I sent you an email about the October virtual Photoshop Summit. It's a week-long seminar that's free. It's all day long for 5 days. You know, in case anyone's interested in that, I sent the photo of their invite to you. So, you know,
yeah, I can pass it on. I know I get yeah, that's Dave Cross puts those on, right? That's the one I'm thinking of.
Correct.
The date on it, Tony?
I think it's October 7th.
Well, I can put that in the newsletter also. So.
I'll send you the, well, if Jeff sends it out.
Yeah.
I can send it out. I get that stuff. I haven't thought that far ahead into October. I know I've got Photoshop World. Scott Kelby has his Photoshop World that goes next week, although that's a paid one. If you really want to learn stuff about Photoshop, signing up for Photoshop World, he has it's a ton of courses that they'll be doing for 3 days. So
the virtual summit is various professional photographers showing their different genres of photography and how they use Photoshop to do that. And I've watched 2 of them now, and I think they're very interesting. I pick up a lot of ideas. I've yet to put any into practice, but you know, it gets me thinking about different ways to, you know, shoot and handle images.
No, it's that virtual summit that they keep putting on. They've done quite a few of them. They've always been interesting. So it's a matter, if you pay extra, I believe you can watch it. What?
I think this one is on Lightroom. It's not on Photoshop.
Oh, is it? Okay.
This one is Lightroom.
Yeah, I probably got an email on it. I just haven't looked at them, but
sorted it out. Yeah.
We'll let everybody know about them. If anybody else hears of other ones, just let us know, and maybe start putting a list into the email that I send out. I'm trying to limit the emails to once a month so that we don't inundate you with emails. So we'll keep that going. But other than that, I think they'll cover it for today. So thanks everybody for coming. We had a great turnout. We'll see what we come up with for September. Should be something interesting, hopefully.
Yeah, Jeff, you're right. We definitely had, I think, at least 44 people, it looked like at one time.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a great turnout. And it's nice when I can get speakers like that. We'll keep bringing in speakers. I think I'm going to be signing up another a gal to do further in depth in infrared photography. I know some people aren't quite as interested in that, but this gal comes at it from a slightly different angle. So we had the great one from Joe that gave us a lot of the basic information. And this gal, she's down south, is, if I get it worked out, it's going to show a little more, what would I call it? Different ways of working with infrared photography. So always sort of interesting, trying to come up with different topics and different people. So I keep finding them, and we'll keep bringing them in. So we'll see what happens.
Round them up. Okay.
So
All right.
other than that, thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Have a good one,
Sounds good.
everyone. Thank you.
All right.